All right, well, a little loud for good morning. Another beautiful, blessed morning here at Sandy Pines. It's a nice fall morning, so we'll try and get through this quickly and answer any questions you might have. We'll give a recap of what we're doing for the lake committee here and everything that we're doing for our new asset. So don't forget, we've got breakfast of champions in the back, cookies and coffee, thanks to Lupinks and Door there. This is the last town hall for 2024, so I don't know if you've been to the other town halls or not, but at the end of the year we're doing some surveys and get us some feedback. You know, what did you think of going from face-to-face to town halls on specific items? Just give us some feedback and send it to Ian at Communications. Stop into my office. It seems to have been well received this year, but we're always looking to improve and things to do during the off-season. So we'll get started here. I just want to recap with the Lake Committee that we did, the Lake Committee Town Hall that we did in May. If you remember, we kind of kicked off the season with the lake's our number one asset. Here's the things that we're going to be looking at. We're looking at short-term projects, midterm projects, and then long-term projects. Cost meeting, and then some of the things that we're looking at for 2025 and beyond. So, again, if you remember, some of the short-term items that we were looking at was, as we got Eagle in here, just what are you doing to protect the lake? Rules, all right? So just go out and enforce the rules. We've done that really well, I would say, over the last couple of years. We've had boat patrol out there on a regular basis, enforcing the rules. The boat lengths, size of boats over the last couple of years, we put a pretty good effort in making certain that we have the right boats out there, the proper boats, they're meeting the rules. I got some data from public safety yesterday. This year we took a look at 15 boats that were kind of in question, whether they didn't have registrations, the registrations didn't match what was on the deck lengths and things of that nature. So then our process is public safety will go out and look at those boats. So out of those 15 boats, we had 6 that we found were not meeting the rules for various reasons. The registrations didn't match what the boat length was. Members went out. We had a couple of these instances where members went out and purchased a boat and didn't understand the deck length rule, and they had to turn around and return their boat because as they got to registered at public safety or at member service, public safety, we noticed that the registration said your deck length is too long, so they couldn't drop it on the lake. So that in turn spurred public safety getting a lot of calls with, hey, I'm getting ready to buy a boat. Can I have you take a look at it? What's the measurements? How are you measuring it? So we understand boats are an emotional and financial thing for us, right? Boaters. But that hardship through the last couple of years is really working to spur the people are now calling and making certain that they understand the size of the boats, how they get measured before they actually go out and financially purchase a boat. So again, 6 of those were not allowed into the lake. So we've done a good job with that. Staffing we've already talked about. Minions, we still have the buoys getting scheduled in the beginning of the season, and now we're getting those scheduled to be taken out. Boat stakes. So we spent a lot of time on boat stakes. The boat stake locators. We did a lot of that during the off season, talking about where they're at, are they properly located? I can't tell you how many times we've had the comment from our park inspectors in the past, member service, that the boat stakes take up a ton of member service time and park inspectors time. It was a relatively non-event this year. We had, again, Jim Buchanan and Dave and Steve, and we put a lot of effort into that. We took a look at our GPS locators, we took a look at maps. We even took care of some bottled up areas and retired some boat stakes, spread them out because the old maps were right on top of each other. Boat stakes were relatively a non-event this year, which was a good thing, I think, from a member perspective as well as a staffing perspective. That allowed us to focus in on some other things. So all those poles are there. They have the boat stake numbers on them, right and left. We also have a book in the park inspector's office where each boat stake, as we do the data dump at the beginning of the season, each boat stake has the associated MC number for those boat stakes. So we've cleaned that up a lot. That's been really a really good project this season. Let's see, what else some of the other ones that we were looking at. The wells. So the wells, we're still working on. We've got 4 wells that are out there. They're technically about 2.5 are working. So our lake level is low for a couple of factors. One, the dam project that's going on. That's one factor. When we started talking to Eagle, they said we'll need to get that lake level a little bit lower before we start putting coffer dams. We have 2 options of getting that lake level lower. Either A, fill out a permit and do a controlled drain through the spillway, or B, we could do it through attrition through the season. So we did turn off some of the wells at times. Mother Nature, with the heat, evaporation, took care of that, so we didn't have to pull a permit. The lake is kind of where it needs to be for this project. But through the course of that, we've got 1 well and pump that is pretty much dead that we got to take a look at. And then we've got another one that's running less than 50% capacity. The other 2 are still keeping up. So we're going to take a look at either refurbishing new pumps. What do we need to do for that coming into next season to get that lake level back up? And natural water will feed the lake, churn the lake, and it'll make it a cleaner lake, better vegetation, fish, things of that nature. So we have reached out to a hydrogeologist, and easy for me to say. And they are coming at the end of this month to go take a look at our lake, take a look at where our wells are at. They have a mapping of all of the wells in Allegheny County and where we think we might be able to tap into a nice area to either add another well. They'll take a look at our existing wells and equipment here and see if they can help us out with that. So wells was on the list. We're still working on that. Lights on the tunnel in between phase 2 and 3. We highlighted that at the beginning of the season. That one's been done. We've looked at a solution for dock storage. So again, if you remember about this time last year, when Eagle came in and said dock permits needed to be filled out if you're going to leave your dock in through the entire year. Jim can speak specifically on how we're going this year as he gets up those dock permits and any conversations he's had with Eagle. But we went through that process and then we trialed. We put a memo out to the membership last fall saying, hey, listen, it says no storage of stuff in the green space around the lake. We're in the green space, right? So we said for that season, pull your docks out, go ahead and leave them as far away from the high water mark as possible. And we're going to try to look and see see how that works. Excuse me. People that in phase 2 that may have a dock in phase 4, doesn't make sense to drag that thing all the way over to your site or find a place in the bullpen. That worked really well last year. So thank you to all the members that have that docked. I would say 95% of our members did a great job. We had a couple issues here and there during the off season. So that then cascaded into a rule change. If you noticed in August, I believe we did that, where we now made that a permanent rule. You can store your docks in that green space area. It has to be, you've got your boat stake locator, you've got the lake 10 feet out from this boat stake locator, because this is at the high water mark. Anything close to the high water mark, if we're trying to do any work during the off season, or at the high water mark inside of that area, even though the lake is down, Eagle will want a permit for that. So push those back. We made that a new rule, so that's hopefully going to work out well. We took a look at carpfish, roundup, I guess, or contest. We didn't get that in time. We're going to work on that this off season and find either come up with a plan for members to do a contest or have somebody come in and take care of the carp for us. We'll work on that in the off season. We didn't get that one done right away. We did look at some like a kayak launch, and we did look at a mobility mat for handicapped people to get out onto the beach. Those are kind of tabled right now. Some of the product we looked at we liked, some of it we didn't, some of the pricing we liked, some of it we didn't. So we're going to table those, take a little more time to look at that before we spend any capital. And then finally, our 2 projects for riprap, the phase 2 point over there, that got done during the season, as well as Chapel Point. So those were the short-term ones that we committed to. Hey, this is what we're looking at. We did I think a decent job. The Lake Committee did a decent job in getting those done and accomplished during the season. So nicely done by the team on that. Some of the midterm items that we're looking at, 2025 and beyond. Some of the erosion at Sailboat Cove entrance. Lake Committee is going to be looking at some boat lifts. Other erosion solutions around the lake. Is it riprap? Is it something else? Originally we started, hey, Eagle saying riprap. Lake Committee is like, hold on, that could be expensive, so let's take a look at some other options. So we are going to take a look at some other options. Seawalls that are around the lake, wooden seawalls, as those become dilapidated and they start basically falling apart, we have to come up with another solution to replace those. Eagle has come in and they've taken a look at, hey, we don't like wood or seawalls, because again, all it does is take that energy, hit the wall, shoves it all the way down, and then dumps that energy somewhere else. So it's just pushing that erosion along the wall and dumping it at a point somewhere where there's not a wall. They want something different that'll absorb that energy and not push it down. So seawalls are, park inspectors, Jim and Steve, they go out, they take a look at your seawalls if you have any. They'll make a determination, will it fall within the guidelines of Eagle to allow repair, or is it something that is too far beyond that, where it's going to have to be a complete replacement, and then what's the solution? Dredging continues to come up, and that's going to be a longer term. We haven't taken it off the list, but for some of these mid and longer term items, we brought in another company. They're called Solitude. Val, who's our chairperson, she spent a lot of time, and as well as I think Jim was with Solitude, going around the lake. They're putting a plan and a proposal and a quote together as to, hey, here's some of the areas that they see we should address. Here's some of the options that we should take a look at, solutions that they can provide. wasn't a very small quote.
No, it was rather large.
It was rather large, so we've got a lot of reviewing during the off season on that. But those longer term projects, before we can get to the dredging of the lake, we got to make certain that once we pull that muck and that dirt and that sand out of the lake, that we've got everything around the high water mark in the lake, not letting it fall back in, because we're just going to get back into the same scenario here. So those were some items that we had talked about in May. Kind of give you an update on.
Did you talk about this?
Nope, haven't gotten there yet. You want to talk about this?
No, not you too.
Okay, so we are taking a look during the off season about horsepower for boats. The ski boats, higher horsepower on pontoons, things of that nature. We're still waiting for a bunch of studies from the state of Minnesota. We're the Great Lakes states, but they have 10,000 lakes, so they're doing a lot of studies for smaller lakes.
The DNR and Michigan Fisheries also.
Yep, the DNR, Michigan Fisheries, and one thing that we're really looking at, we're keeping our eye on, is there is Michigan legislation, and Val and Jim will probably mess this up, but there's Michigan legislation reviewing, ballast boats, horsepower, things of that nature, that is in front of the state of Michigan right now. And if they pass a law that states these smaller inland lakes can no longer handle these types of boats, they're not allowed on these smaller lakes, we fall into that category. So it's very similar to some of the other stuff we've been talking about with Michigan legislation. If it's passed, it's a law, then we have to abide by that. It's still being reviewed. It's in the review pending state, so we're keeping our eyes on that. Did I describe that one correctly? All right. We talked about the wells. We have really two of them functioning right now. The North Shore one here is doing well, and then over by the chapel, those are the two that are functioning really well. We looked at other solutions. If you come here in the spring and you drive down by the golf course and down the curvy road there on 28, and you look at where the well is at outside of the equipment barn there, and it's always overflowing with water. What the heck is going on with that? There's so much water pressure on that well for the golf course that we've taken a look to see, can we try and redirect some of that to the lake? Unfortunately, we can't. The permit for that is a different kind of permit than what we need for our lake wells. So we did try to divert some of that water that the golf course is using. And then as you see during the season, that stops overflowing as they start feeding the golf course, sprinkler and things of that nature. But it's a different type of permitted well. We cannot move that up. Now, one of the things that we are looking at, hopefully with this hydrogeologist that's coming in at the end of the month, is where that well is located. If there's so much water and there's so much pressure there, can we put one in line from kind of where the golf course is at? You just make a line, and here's up by phase 4 by the lake. Do we think we can get a new well there with the same kind of water pressure and gallons per minute and things of that nature, which would basically, kind of go where the boats are parked in the sand over there, is kind of what we're thinking. So these are some of the things that we're still working on. Back to the horsepower, we're not an all-sport lake, and we're a smaller lake. Generally, lakes over 300 acres have a minimum depth of 10 feet in the recreation areas and wide enough to support a 200-foot diameter recreational zone with 100-foot no weight along shorelines and swim areas. We have a few spots that might be 12 feet, but on average, we're about 7.5 feet. The lake committee acknowledges that Lake Monterey has limited ability to absorb the impact of all kinds of water sports on our lake. So we're trying to monitor and make certain that, you know, we don't want to, full transparency, some of the conversations have been, just make it a no sport lake and just do pontoons and kayaks and, well, that's not fun. So, and that's what we're here, right? That's not what we're here for. We want to take the kids out and do some tubing and have some fun, water skiing, things like that. So we're trying to balance that with horsepower and size of boats and things of that nature. We already talked about the Michigan fisheries, the DNR, University of Minnesota studies. We're still waiting for a bunch of that information to come back. For docks, so I'll turn it over to Jim here in a second for docks, but we have 2 contractors, I think.
Yeah, D&H Lawn Care Service is one. And then Jim said someone named Curtis, but I could not find them on the vendors list, so.
Yeah, I talked to him yesterday, so they do have his name over at administration, so.
Okay. But D&H Lawn Service will pull and reset docks for you. They're fully aware of the new rule, September 15th to May 15th, 10 feet from your boat locator in the green space.
So that was one of the takeaways as well, is if I have to remove them, or I'm leaving, unfortunately, we'll get to the dam project in a second. You know, we've seen a lot of people leave early this year, so we've got questions about, hey, if I can't get a permit, what do I do with my dock? We now have a couple of people that you can contract to have that dock pulled out and placed up on the shoreline. They understand our requirements and where it needs to be, so we've gotten that solution. Appreciate feedback if any of you utilize them. You know, how were they? Did they do a good job? So we do have a couple of resources for you guys to have the docks pulled out. Anything more on docks, Jim? Anything you want to touch on from a permanent standpoint, or Eagle?
Yeah, so since I've worked with Eagle since 2018 over by our lot, we're dealing with the 5th person at this point. So the end game kind of seems to change. So that being said, we've not actually talked to, because she's still in training, the new gal, but I am working with a gentleman that is in the area and will be working with her and getting her all set up. So anyone who has had their dock in for a period of time, and that is one of the Eagle changes that we ran into, if they can send us a letter or contact the building department, we will take those letters and put them in your file. I've had some people say, my dock has been in this location now for 10 years. We need that document in your file, and anything that has been in there for a specific period of time does not require a permit. They do have the ability to go back to Eagle Eye or Google Earth and look at a specific date to find out if that's accurate, just so you know. But I am taking letters, and Steve is taking letters that we'll put in your file, which omits you from needing that type of a permit. Anybody else, that permit window for this year has been ended because there's not enough time frame. You can still bring them in, but there's no guarantees. We are obviously working for our members to do the best job we can for you and get these things registered, but we also have a working relationship with Eagle because we're staying in contact with them on the shoreline issues. That relationship has gone very well since we met with them about 2 years ago now on our lake. So just please get back in touch with us if you have any questions on that. And again, that window is closed this year. I'll still take them, but there's very little chance that those will get through. And then anybody else that their dock has been there for an extended period of time already, please let us know, and we will work with you individually on those case by case.
Are you taking questions?
Yeah, we'll take questions at the end. I'm almost done with the recap, and then we'll open it up here. So some of the other projects or other alternative solutions that we're looking at, that we got from Solitude, outside of just riprap and, some of the stuff that, has been suggested from Eagle, we're looking at some other options that we believe are pretty decent ones that we can present to Eagle as well. But for a lot of the erosion areas, can we dredge a smaller opening? What's a permit for that? What does that look like? We can apply bagged or basketed riprap and plant vegetation around erosion areas. There's a SOX solution that, which is basically, think about a tube of sand and muck, right? And then you can put it, pull that sand and muck out in the area that we're looking at, fill it into a sock, roll it up onto the shoreline, plant some vegetation in it or around it, and then hold that up. So we are looking at some other options other than just riprap, because again, even phase 2, when we did that riprap project, boat stakes were affected, and so a lot of the boat stakes are right on the shoreline. If we're putting riprap, how do I get to my boat? Do I have to get a dock now? So we're looking at some of these other solutions that Solitude and the Lake Committee has brought up. Any other ones you want me to have?
I think that was it.
All right. Cost-wise, where we're sitting right now, we had, the board had allocated $250,000 back in 2022 for lake projects. This is different because these projects are capital. We get a lot of questions about, hey, what about the stickers? What about the boat sticks? That's operations. That money was used to fund staffing for the lake, fund a lot of the stuff, staffing for boat stakes. That took a lot of time during the off season to get done. Our electricity, because we have been running the wells pretty much 24/7 in the past, that bucket is operations, so that pays for the operational needs. When we start looking at projects, we had $250,000 allocated to lake development projects. And status on that is we are down to about $17,000 left in the bucket on that. So what did we spend that money on? Roughly $64,000 was done on the phase 3 well that unfortunately doesn't work. It works, but it doesn't meet the permitted. We were looking at 500 gallons per minute. Again, this is why we need to bring in a hydrogeologist, our well experts. Hey, this is kind of in line with other successful wells. Well, we're going to tap it. It was roughly 30 grand-ish for the well, and then we had to have consumers come out and run power to that. That was roughly the other $34,000. It didn't work. So that was a hard lesson to learn on that one. That's why before we start looking at any other wells throughout the park, we want that hydrogeologist to come in, put the mapping out, do an overlay, and still at the end of the day, when you talk to a hydrogeologist and you talk to any of the wells guys, we talk to 2 different wells people, even Solitude, who does a lot of slick stuff. You can look at maps, you can look at science information. You're not going to know until you get down there and you tap it. So there's still going to be that risk. This process this way is going to be more of an educated guess than we're going to go here. So that was a hard lesson to learn, but that was $64,000. Roughly $30,500 was allocated for the phase 2 riprap project. $31,400 was the Chapel Point Shoreline project. The galvanized poles with the caps that we did all the boat stake locators, that was around $13,000. And then we had some lake pump equipment that needed to be purchased. That was $1,400. The two big ones right now are from the dam. So when the county and the state came in and downgraded our dam from satisfactory to poor and told us we need to get that fixed, that kicked off the dam project. And engineering services at the beginning, really from December when we started getting the state and the county in here through now, actually through May, it was $44,000 for engineering services. And right now we're running at an additional $39,000 for the design of the dam, working with the county, soil erosion tests, things of that nature, that had to come out of our capital because the grant that we have from the state, which is $723,600, they will not allow us to allocate any funds from that grant that was spent prior to receiving the grant. So we're still going to submit some of this cost and try and get it pulled out of the grant and paid through by the grant. We might get some of this money back and dump into where we could do some additional capital stuff. And then we've got $10,000 of buoys that we did. That was one of the first purchases that we did. So if my Excel spreadsheet is correct, out of the $250,000 that's allocated, we have about $17,063 left. So what we're trying to look at moving into the dam project, it's estimated at $1.4 million. We have $723,600 allocated from a state grant. Part of the scope of work on that state grant was remove the shrubs. So I've got a ton of calls and emails about why we're taking the shrubs out. It's part of the scope. They don't want any roots burrowing into the back of that dam. It promotes varmints digging holes in there and things of that nature. So part of that is a little over 50% of the cost, the estimated cost of the dam. So we still have $676,000 plus that the membership, Sandy Pines, all of us need to figure out how we're going to pay for this. Don't have an answer yet. The plan is we're going to have an answer hopefully at the board meeting at the end of September. Options that we were looking at was first, how much of the $250,000 we still have left in that bucket? Can we allocate that? We have $17,063. Any other capital projects that we might have had some savings on, or we didn't push that we didn't do this year? Can we pull out of that? What's the balance of that? There is going to be an assessment. I'm just being very transparent. The board is aware of that. We've tried to look at all different other avenues. There's a high probability there's going to be an assessment, but what's that dollar amount look like? We're looking at other options as well. Kimberly and I have crunched the numbers many, many times. We're going to take a look at probably 4 options with the board at the end of September and kind of go through which ones are the best options. So that's kind of where we're at. The dam, hey, the road's closed. No, it's not. Every time we get a call from the contractor, we're closing it today, we're going to be moving machinery and equipment. Poor Ian goes out there, puts an update. 5 minutes later, it's not closed. We see cars driving back and forth. So the timeline states next week they are going to start putting those steel plates around the spillway for the coffer dam. And again, how that's going to work is you got the steel plates that interlock. They're going to put it around the area that we need to do the construction, and then we just drain that area. That's what that big crane is out there for. The timeline says that starts Monday. We'll see if it starts Monday, but the crane's there. It's gonna happen next week sometime. I would plan on having going through the alternate routes. That road is going to get closed more likely next week. We'll clarify again. We had an update sent out on August 20th with here's alternative routes. You can go through phase 4 gate, phase 6 gate, the admin gate. The park's position on can you drive your carts on the road or not? Our recommendation is no, you drive your vehicles. If you have to get around and you have to go on a public road, drive your vehicle. If you have an ORV sticker certified golf cart that can go on the road, the county road commission and the Allegan County Sheriff, they said they allow those as well. Try to stay on the median or the shoulder if you drive those. So what does that entail? Does it have turn signals? Does it have brake lights? Does it have safety belts? Things like that. Can you drive it on a road like a car? That's an ORV. So you can drive those. If you don't meet those two requirements, we do not recommend you driving on the road. If you do that, you do it at your own risk. We can't have people, we need to make certain that they're safe going around this construction area. So this is for your safety, make certain that you either use your vehicle or an ORV. Okay? So with that, we can open it up for any questions that you may have. We've got a mic over there. You can say your name and site number. We'll try and get you some answers.
Patty Muzzin, 314 Edgehill. I was curious, how many boat stakes have you retired? You mentioned you retired.
Good question. Well, how many recently have we retired? I would say I'd have Jim or Steve answer that. I don't know how many we retired this season, if you know off the top of your head.
Well, last week I retired 5.
Okay.
But by doing that, I've opened up space for more boats. And next spring, we should have movement on boat stake list where people on the list, we can apply them to a new boat stake. That's the long-term goal. I didn't do that this year because first year doing this, not knowing the lake setup, how everything was situated, I did not want to put people in bad locations. So that's why I did what I did. So hopefully next spring when Cindy comes back, we'll be notifying people that, hey, we have a location here. Are you interested in moving to this spot?
Have you issued any new boat stakes this year?
No.
Yeah, because we've been on the waiting list for 7, 8 years now.
We've had people looking at, we had 2 people in 16, everybody else in 17. So yes, we have a long list of people waiting. That's why I inherited a mess. We're trying to make the best of it. And we should have, I'm hoping 30 to 40 boat stakes available next spring to offer to people.
Do some people have 2 boat stakes?
Correct.
Okay, and that's...
The rule, I understand.
Yeah, so they do. There's a grandfather clause that, sites, I want to go back, I think it's 1996, 97. Basically, when they opened up phase 6, right, it was kind of a promotion to buy over in phase 6 and get over here in the new development. 2 boat stakes were issued at that time for a site. If that site transfers or sells, they have to retire one. Back in 2021, 2022, there was another rule passed that, you can, if you want to, because of the boat stake fee, you can retire your boat stake as well. But if it gets retired that way, it doesn't go into the lot where it opens it up for somebody else. If you sell your site and you have to retire that, you have to return that boat stake, that could go into the pool. If you voluntarily retire that boat stake, that does not go into the pool. The other thing look right next to each other, and some of them just don't have a park model, and they have a shed on it. If you have 2 memberships, you can have a boat stake per membership. So we do have some members that have 2 boat stakes.
So the only way to get a boat stake then is if somebody has one and decides they don't want to pay the $75 a year to keep it, is it?
Pretty much, or we have had, people during the sale, the buyers aren't, they don't have a boat, they're not interested, so they just return the boat stake. So, yeah, it's pretty much up to the owners right now. If they want to return it, then it goes into the open pot. If it doesn't,
It'd be hard to come by, for sure.
it is, and, to answer your question, total, we have about 182 retired boat stakes. And those boat stakes are in unaccessible areas, things of that nature, where we just wouldn't put anybody on those boat stakes. And then some of those are from the rule back in 2022, where they voluntarily retired those boat stakes. They don't want somebody parking a different boat in front of their site, and they don't want to pay a fee, so it's retired.
Other question is, when you sell, the door walls need to be installed, is that correct? If you don't have a door wall between your sunroom and...
Yep, so you're talking trailer modifications.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we want to try and stick to the lake stuff today, but to answer your question, yes, if you're going through the sale, the process through the inspection is if you have a slider missing, a door, a wall, a window, the state law, and this was what was clarified again at the last board meeting, the state law in Public Act 368, Part 125, defines what a park model is. And the park model is a fully enclosed waterproof unit that can go down the road. So if any of those things are missing, you will get asked to replace them.
Do you know if they would allow just a regular door be put in, or does it have to be a slider?
I would defer to Jim on that. He's been more closely to that, but I think at the end of the day, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, as long as it is waterproof. Is that accurate, Jim?
That's accurate. So yeah, so we've seen some people try to put like the interior barn doors up. That does not qualify because it's not in what the state code says is, and HUD made it very clear when they exempted these from the code. They said if the 3-season sunroom is removed and that unit is no longer a thermal waterproof barrier, then that room became part of that square footage. So that's the actual code, and that comes through HUD where we have an exemption from, but we fall back into HUD when we breach that exemption.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Good question.
Paul Whitty from K298. We're just outside, or just inside the power lines over there, and we've seen the water levels go down purposefully, like you described. But up until about 2 weeks ago, those water levels are where they were 20, 30 years ago. And I'm wondering, because we've got about 30 feet more of sand there, and actually the sand's been building up for some strange reason, maybe blowing from Phase 1 beach. But I'm wondering if there's thought given to the lake level limit, even though the high water mark is well up there, of not having the water after the dredging, after the riprap or shoreline protection, of not having the water up so far, that even if we do have power boats out there, but we're enforcing the no wake and the no ballast, would protect the shoreline.
Yeah, no, good question. We haven't been asked that, so that's something we can absolutely take a look at. I don't know if you...
Yeah, at this point, the 672 that we have from the state when this was originally applied for is the line, is the height that the state agrees with, and that's the one. It would almost take an act of Congress. And they don't work very well together right now. But anyways, it would be very difficult to change that level, and that level is the level that the Eagle is using for the 30 foot that we have to stay back within. What we are trying to do, and the wells are going to be a key to it, is starting at phase 1, which is get that water level to stay up. People that we've talked to said if we can do that and keep a hardened shoreline, it's going to help dramatically in our erosion. So we're trying to get that water level to stay up, which means wells and this hydrologist to come in and try to tell us where these pockets of water are down there, now that they have different technology. So that's what we're going to try to do and work that way backwards. But there is some scientific information that Jeff had mentioned coming out to make sure that we don't do other things to degrade our lake. And that is where Eagle came in, that Jeff was alluding to, and said, you basically want to come in and trash your place, and then you want us to come in and give you permits to fix it. What are you doing, and what are you willing to do to take care of what you've been blessed with? And then we come alongside and work with you. So that's why we're putting all these things in line to prove to Eagle that we're willing to be responsible with what we have, and then they will come alongside and work with us.
So the high water mark, I understand, doesn't mean the water is always that high, right?
You're right. Your question
There's a place where.
Yeah. Your question is more along the high water mark is here, but do we really need to have the water there?
Right, because when the water was there, it was a lot.
The challenge, and understand your question. The challenge with that is our lake has been doing this so much over the last 30, 40, 50 years. We go back to that hardened shelf. That's what we need to have, is that hardened shelf. So we need to pick a point. Is it the high water mark? Is it something below that? And then stick with it for years and years and years, so that hardened shelf.
And I'm just wondering, is it going to come back 30 feet up?
Right.
Or is it 20? Or is it, where's that ideal mark where the shell is after the dredging? Because I know the lake is 10 feet shallower at its deepest point. It was 22 feet between the island and that shoreline, and now it's 11 or 12.
It's 12.
So I get all that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's where it all went.
Right. No, that's a good question.
But the water cannot exceed the height of the spillway. So the spillway is really the limiting factor here. But our high water mark is below that spillway. So in the spring, when we get all the waters, it's running over hopefully, we didn't this year, but snow, rain, whatever, it goes over the spillway, then slowly evaporates down to what is considered our high water mark.
I mean, the high water mark, if that was met all the way around, we'd have a huge lake, but we'd also have a lot of erosion. Or we would just have more water.
At 600, but at 673 feet or 600 feet, you're going to have erosion because of boats,
right.
Waves, whatever.
I'm just saying, give some space between that and your plans for riprap or the sock. I like all those ideas.
Okay.
Great.
Good.
Well, the Eagle only allows us from that high water mark to work in 6 feet. That's the rule. We can't work beyond that 6 feet into the lake. Mm-hmm. So to come out and change that, now we're working in their lake, and that is not a permittable idea.
But you could pump less, right?
We could. Yeah.
We can pump less, but we still, from that 672, unless that changes, we can't work any further than 6 feet into the lake. That's the maximum that we can go from that original point. And we've had somebody say, why can't you rake this area? There's no water there anymore, or I'm storing my dock where there's no water. The state doesn't care whether there's water there or not. That's their property.
Yeah, I get that.
So that's the problem that we have. We can only do that riprap at that 672 and in 6 feet from there.
I'll take the 6 feet. It was -6.
Right. Go ahead.
Yes. Hello. Yeah, my name is Bill Easto, Site 1294. And I'm not so sure. I had some confusion. I want to respect the board, but is this meeting just about the lake, or am I open to any question?
Well, we're trying to focus in on the lake. So we have the lake committee here. We have members from the board that. So depending on what you have, Bill, we can try and answer it, or we can do our usual, submit it and try and get it back to you. So
Well,
what do you got?
well, if I have other questions other than the lake, it's the best time for you to present.
Well, depending on what you have. So typically when you and I have interacted, it's been financial stuff. So we had a 10-year capital one that we try to change the venue of, we weren't getting a lot of turnout for the face-to-faces where it was just open mic and come with your questions. So we gathered specific town halls that are impacting the park during this season and did specific topics.
Okay.
And we got a lot more turnout that way, so.
Okay, well, I guess I do have at least one, but if, I have one question for the lake, but when is my opportunity if I have other questions?
You can submit them to the board of directors. They have that, if you go on the website, you can submit all your questions to the board of directors. They get all those questions.
Okay.
So,
Okay, yeah, well, concerning the lake then, when I went, I didn't understand, I didn't see in the capital budget anywhere where the lake dam project was included. Like the 2024, 2025 capital budget plan has been approved. But when I look through it, I see no allocation in the budget to the lake. So, is that what, where's that money going?
for the dam,
For the dam?
that's the problem, and you're right, it's not in the budget. So that money is gonna come from a grant from the state. And then the balance of that is either gonna be a portion of an assessment. We have other levers that we can pull to move funds around. We're gonna go through probably 4 options with the board. Not gonna discuss them here because we haven't gotten them from the board yet. But if the members, if we have to pay that full $676,000 that's out there, it would come through an assessment to the members. And we're trying to avoid having that entire bill hit the membership.
Well, I guess I don't understand. I mean, you've already committed to the dam, so how can you have an approved capital plan or budget that doesn't include it?
Because this was not in our plan, because this was a government entity coming in here and saying, you will do this. And the way we pay for that is through a member assessment. Doesn't have to be voted on, doesn't have to be in the budget.
Well, that's a little confusing. So what is the 2024, 2025 capital budget?
The 2024-2025 capital budget is posted online, and that was reviewed starting in April.
Correct. So I believe I looked at it. It was $580,000. But you're telling me that does not include the dam.
Correct.
Okay. That doesn't make a lot of sense. How are you going to pay for the dam?
I just explained it, Bill. We've got a grant from the state, and then the balance is gonna have to be paid for. Worst case scenario, if we can't come up with other levers of money that's somewhere within Sandy Pines, the membership would pay for that through an assessment.
Okay, but the capital plan changes every year. So let's just say CC number 1 somehow in the plan could be eliminated and that money put towards the lake.
Those are some of the things that we're looking at, Bill.
Okay.
CC number 1 is not going to get eliminated because that is on a FEMA project, which we're getting grant money for that as well. And that was in our plan. But I understand what you're saying. Go down the list of capital projects and take a look at some of those things. Those are some things we're going to be reviewing on the board.
Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm saying also that just because it's a FEMA project, the members are still paying a lot of money to tear down the building and replace it, which doesn't really need to be torn down.
It's not a storm shelter, So, your question, we'll leave it at this. Your question was, how is the dam going to get paid for? All right,
Correct.
so
That's
the
my
dam is going to get paid for either through an assessment, 100% assessment to the members. If the bylaws state if a government entity comes in and tells you you have to do something, we have to do it. We don't get a vote. We have to do it. And the board can go in and assess that to the entire membership. We're trying to avoid 100% of that, so if you do the math, 676, 400 divided by 2,163 members is about $315 one-time payment for a dam that's going to last 50 years. So that's option one. Option two
Well, I
is
agree, the dam needs to be done.
an assessment, or are there other capital projects that we can push aside, delay, to come up with some other money, or some other way to soften an assessment on membership. And those items will be discussed at the end of this month, okay?
Well, how can CC1 be in the plan when members haven't even voted on doing it? According to.
So Bill, we had
bylaws-
we had a 10-year capital meeting. We went through all of this. You can submit your question to the board. You can come in and submit your question to me as well. I can walk you through all of that. We want to focus really on lake stuff today, okay? We've got members behind me that have lake questions.
Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Name is Roger Phillips, 458. I just have a question. The dredging, is that done with, if it's done, is that going to be done with like barges, or do they pump?
Yes.
I was in Florida, they pump, so how would that be done?
All of the above.
Oh, okay. So they would, it's possible it could be pumping to, out of the,
Different areas of the lake would be dredged differently. They're all pretty unique.
okay, that's all I have.
Thanks, Roger.
Little more clarification on boat stakes. If you retired 40 boat stakes, did members lose their boat stakes? How does that work?
Well, I think that's a different. If a member loses their boat stake, so we have take it back boat stakes where people haven't registered their boat. They've done something, whatever that is, to lose their boat stake. That boat stake would go back in the availability, and it could get reissued to somebody that's on the meeting list.
No, I'm referring to the ones that you cleaned up the boat stake situation this year. And you said you retired a lot of them. Is that people who didn't have boats registered, or were they in bad areas to access? How does that work?
I think it's a mixture of all the above, right, Steve?
Yeah, I retired 4 or 5 boat stakes.
Oh,
not
okay,
4.
okay,
Yeah, there was overcrowding. In
gotcha.
other words, the boats were hitting each other, so they're unusable.
Okay, did those 4 or 5 boat stakes get, and I'm just wondering, are we being pushed back on the waiting list? Are people being put in front of us?
No.
Okay.
No, when you applied, that is when the number, spot you got located, and
Okay.
I did not take, no, I'm not taking the boat stake away, I just, was it an empty boat stake? Or I had to move somebody, because they had one side of the boat stake, not both sides. I put them in a different location, very close to where they were. That boat stake was unusable, so I had to take it away.
Gotcha, I was just wondering if it changed the lineup.
No, did not change the line. Anybody in the waiting list is still right where they are.
Okay, thanks.
I would not do that to people.
Hi, my name is Julie Bull, and I'm at 5275. Every fall, we always put up the signs for, keep the leaves out of the lake, don't put the leaves in the lake. All summer long, there's cottonwood trees down by the beach where I'm at, and I rake it up and I rake it to the green space because there's a lot of leaves and there's a lot of sticks that come off those trees. And I know earlier in the year you guys talked about cleaning up green space and that, you were laying it more on the members, but I can't drive my golf cart down there, and I'm certainly not dragging a pile of stuff that's like huge. And I don't understand why that's not being picked up when the guys come down with the tractor and the bucket and stuff like that. So it really looks pretty crappy when I'm trying to keep the stuff out of the lake. And then I see that all the way along our shoreline where it's not being cleaned up.
What phase, you're 582?
275.
275.
Yeah,
Wow.
so I'm just at the beginning of Sailboat Cove, like where it narrows there, where they stop raking
I know
and
where
stuff
it was,
like
yeah.
that. So I guess I would just appreciate that if I go through all the work of getting all the crap out of the lake.
Somebody come pick it up?
Yes, that would appreciate
All right, we'll
it.
take a look at that.
Thank you.
I'd like to say one more thing. We really appreciate all your efforts. I know I've sat on board. It's a lot of work. I know you take a lot of flack from people because you can't please everybody, but thank you for all that.
Thank you. Very much appreciated, thank you. Yeah, the Lake Committee has done a great job, an tireless effort, so they've done a great job. All right, we're bumping up against
10:01.
10:01. Any other questions? Bob, got any questions for us? No? Okay.
Good answer, Bob.
All right, with...
Mine is not about the lake, but
Oh.
I'll go over there. Mary Madsen, I'm in 934. Almost had a run-in on the night that we went over to the chapel for the memorial for the officer that got killed. On the way back, two kids on a scooter, a motorized scooter, was on the wrong side of the road in the dark, no reflectors, no lights, and dark clothes. I wonder if over the winter we can't take a look at all these motorized things that are on the road. Now you have to buy a sticker for a kayak that's not going to run over anybody. And the other question was, because they were on my side of the road, if I'd have hit them, would have been my fault? I have to have liability insurance on my golf cart. What do they have?
So, good question. This has come up a couple of times at board meetings during the season. So, the safety and security, as well as the rules committee, are looking at we got a ton of electric stuff, electric scooters. You got those one-wheel things that hoverboard, whatever they're called nowadays. We don't have a real good answer to that. We try.
Well, I thought over the winter, perhaps.
We will try to unpack that a little bit better during the off season in the winter. So, good question. All right. I think there's still some cookies and coffee back there, so take some to go home and.